In a previous video we took a look at using isolated storage. Now, as the name suggests, this is isolated per user and then per application or per site. And either way you get a quota for your application by default that you can use on the user's machine. And then once you've exceeded that quota, that's it. You won't be able to write any data onto the machine. It kind of stops some malicious application trying to download lots and lots of data to fill up a user's hard drive. But we can try and manipulate that quota. So let's take a look at that here. We've got a standard Silverlight project and the hosting website project. And all I've done so far in my Silverlight project is I've started a tiny piece of sort of UI. It's not really much of a UI. We have a text block which is called text current size. We have a text box which is called text new size. And we have a button which is called set. And let's go ahead and start writing some code behind this. So the first thing I want to do when we get into our application, let's just handle the loaded event and throw a handler in for that. And what we'll do is we'll go and find the size of the current isolated store. So we'll say isolated storage file, the store for the application dot quota. So this is how big the thing can be. Notice we can also use available space, so that would tell us how much space is left. But essentially that's quota minus space used, which is something that might be useful. But what we'll do here is just get the quota. Now this is a long, so let's say long quota equals the quota. And let's just say that text current size dot text equals quota dot toString. And in fact I'm going to just encapsulate that out into a function. Let's just say refactor that as a method. We'll call it populate quota. And then we're calling that from load. So let's press F5. And straight away we should be able to see what the size of the isolated storage is. So it's 104.8576. Okay, so 104.8576 is a magic number. That's 1024 times 1024. This is reported in bytes, so 1024 bytes would be a K. So 1024 times that would be a meg. So what we've got basically is 1 meg of storage that's available to this application right now. That's the quota anyway. We don't know how much storage the application's actually used, but because it's our application, we know it hasn't used any storage, so the quota is also the available space in this case. So let's go and do something about trying to change the quota. Let's go back to the code behind here. Let's go to our button that says set, and what we'll do is put a click handler behind this. Click equals on click. Let's jump into the code. Let's write a click handler. Let's say event handler click. And what we'll do is we'll get the new size off the screen. So we'll say long new quota equals, and we'll just go and say long.parse text new size.text. That's the text box that we got on the screen. Now how do we want to type that into the UI? We probably don't want to type it in as K or bytes. We probably want to type it in as meg. So let's say new quota times equals 1024 times 1024. So we'll get that into megabytes effectively. And then what we'll go and do is we'll say if isolated storage file dot, let's get the store for the application and let's increase the quota to the new quota size. If that works, then what we'll do is we'll go and repopulate the quota to say what it now is. Otherwise what we'll do is we'll do something like let's say text new size.text equals failed, just to put that into the text box. Let's go ahead and build. Let's go ahead and run. And let's go, I think we're at 1 meg at the moment, aren't we? So let's see if we can go to 2 megs. So let's change that into 2. Set. And we get this message from the browser saying, do you want to increase the available storage? So the user is going to be prompted. And we can see that this website, which is localhost in my case, is requesting 2 megs. It currently hasn't used any storage whatsoever. Do we want to allow this or not? If the user says no, then the application can see that it failed. If we go back and try 2 megs again and say set, and the user says yes, we can now see that the quota has been increased to 2 megs. Okay, so that's kind of interesting. This is always under user control. And one thing to say to you here is you might notice, let's just stop debugging for a second, that I am calling increase quota from a click handler on my button. Something to say about this increase quota function. The framework takes great steps to ensure that you can only call this in response to a user interface action. You cannot just call this from some background thread that wasn't initiated as part of a user interface action. So effectively I think the guys are doing a stack walk to see if you've got a UI interaction on the stack, and if not, this function will simply fail. So that's to try and stop somebody just calling this without the user clicking some kind of UI in order to make it explicitly happen. So let's go back. We should have 2 megs still in there. Let us go and ask for 3 megs. So 3 megs please. We get the dialog, do you want to increase? Yes. We're jumping up. Let's go for 4 megs. No, it's getting a little bit repetitive. Yes. Let's go for 5 megs. Yes. Let's try 8 megs. Looks about right. Let's go for 9. And we just keep on ramping this thing up. Ask for 10 megabytes. Still there. At some point, we can just keep going up and up and up and asking for more and more space. So you get the idea. Essentially, this is just giving the application the amount of storage that it's asking for. It's always going to be in response to a user action. And this is different. This is the quota that stops you overfilling the user's disk and is directly within their control. And that's kind of different, if you remember, from what we said you could get by looking at isolated storage file, the user store, and then the available free space, which is going to be quota minus however much space you've already used in that store. So hopefully you get an idea that we can expand this storage if we ask the user for it and if the user explicitly allows us to expand it.